Alright everyone, this is a little update on my headers that I got from eBay. I've gotten eBay headers before, like cheap ones. I think I paid, like, for my last set, I think I paid, like, it was like 108 or 116 bucks, something like that. It was really cheap, and these were like 150 bucks or 60, right around there. The guy took them off of eBay, so I can't look them up anymore, but, these things were probably the worst headers that I ever bought. They looked good. I gave them a good review and everything, like, after I got them shipped to me and all that, but they came with these little chintzy, tiny bolts that when I tightened them down, they were starting to go through the flange, because they're about the same size as the hole in the flange. I don't know if you can see those, but they're tiny. And I ended up, like, while I ordered the headers, I got some studs and some nuts. They're little Allen key studs, and you just screw them in and put the bolts on, or the nuts, I mean, and you're good to go. I figured that would have been an easier route. Well, apparently, I remember I got pace setter headers before. Those fit perfect, but they were painted and they ended up rusting and all that. And these are stainless steel ones from, like, China or whatever. And they look great. Like, you would think, oh, like, oh, you get that super thick flange on it and everything, and the welds look pretty decent on the insides of the tubes, not so much on the outside. Like, they just look like tack welds on the outside, and they actually TIG welded to the inside. But they looked alright until I started putting them on, and I have no clue if my my little knuckle there is gonna hit anything or not, which I'm assuming that probably it will, maybe, when I put it on. But which will be a whole nother scenario, me taking that side of the header off again and beating it with a hammer. But these tubes are really close to being 2 inches is the problem. And I'm pretty sure, I think the pace setter ones were 1.5 inches. Well, I cut part of my what is it called? I'm having a Joe Biden attack here. My cross member off a little bit where it was hitting, which it isn't going to affect it because I didn't cut into the weld on it, but, and I had to beat the hell out of the headers. Like, you can't see it, but the driver's side was absolutely the worst. I had to hammer the hell out of it so it would stop hitting my cross member, and then it was close to hitting my brake line, but I could move the brake line. And it's just such a tight fit. I don't know if you can see anything better in there. Probably not. I can't get the light to really reflect down in there, but it's a really tight fit. And it was hitting all over the place. Like, it was hitting the, let's see, the 1, 2, like the third and the fifth spark plug spots over here. Like, the tubes for those spots, those cylinders, those were running right down and hitting off of my cross member. And it wasn't good. And it took me, like, I took these headers off and put them back on probably, I bet, every bit of 20 times or so on this side to try to get them to fit. Finally, I got that side to fit. I go to put the passenger side on. I just undid the motor mount, lifted up the motor a little bit, and they slid right in. I figured everything was gonna be hunky-dory. Well, I still had an issue way down in there. I ended up cutting the tab off of the transmission a little bit, but the little fucking, the side piece, because I thought it was hitting that. Well, it wasn't hitting that. It was just but it gave me more clearance. But either way, it was hitting my my motor mount down there, one of the tubes. And I'll tell you what, if anybody has ever hit, like, mandrel bent, like, stainless tubes before with a hammer, you would know that it's they do not want to bend. Like, especially if you're hitting them in the part that it was bent at. They're solid as a rock. Like, I ended up blowing out my chair. Like, it fucking split in half. And I was just using like here's a little 2-pound hammer. This little guy here blew my chair out that I sit in. All the legs flew off. And then, so I got done with that one. I went over to this one that was a little bit more sturdier. I kind of straightened it up a little bit. The legs blew out on that. And luckily I got all my hammer time in though. And everything was good to go. Everything smashed in. I eventually had to go to the larger hammer. This one, I think this is like a little 5-pound one or whatever. But we ended up going that route. And that worked. And then I smashed my finger, like, from the vibration of the tubes. That felt great. But eventually, after about, I would say, a good hour of hammer time and 20 times of taking the header off over here, and I would say probably about 15 on this side, maybe 10-ish, 13. Everything fit pretty good. They sound great, I'll tell you that. If you don't mind beating the hell out of your headers, you know, apparently all my hand marks burnt onto the headers there, but that's whatever. I don't give a shit about that. I should have wiped those off before I started it, but I don't think that it's really going to make much of a difference, you know. These tubes, I'm pretty sure the pace setter ones that I had, those were 1.5 inches, and these are really close to 2 inches though, because that's why they're hitting everything. But after I beat everything in with the hammer, pretty good, especially the one tube on the passenger side too, I got pretty good. But it sounds amazing. They fit great now. But I would never recommend buying any of those Chinese headers. They have the circle ports on them instead of like the dome ones, like the D-shaped flanges and everything. They have the circle ones, so they're like kind of like a little bit of a universal between like an LS1 and like an LT1. I don't know if the flanges are spaced apart in the same spots or not. Like if it's like a universal header or whatever. But I did buy the cheap Chinese ones for my Trans Am. I didn't have a problem with those. Those fit great. I ended up putting a Y pipe on, and from I can't remember where the Y pipe came from. It was like a $350 Y pipe, and then like some SLP exhaust, the loudmouth. But I didn't use the resignator. I just put a straight pipe right through, and it sounded great. And the headers didn't hit or anything like that. So I figured, you know, I'd go the Chinese route again, and these ones are all fucked up. Like, I wouldn't recommend, if you see any with these bolts, which most of all of the LT1 ones on eBay come with these bolts, and they're probably all the fucking same. I don't know if you can see that. This bolt, if you see this bolt, and it'll come with the super thick flanges, like that I thought was all great and hunky-dory, like, oh yeah, I got a great thick flange, it's not gonna warp or anything like that. But like all my studs and nuts, I had to grind down all the outside like pre-made like washer into the nuts to get them to even go on there, and it was a hell of a time getting all my nuts on there. But I ended up getting them all on except for the back ones. I used these little stupid things because there's no way in hell that I would have ever gotten those big nuts on there. Like, it just wasn't happening. Like, I like these, but I also like them to go on a header that I can easily put them on, instead of making it a 3 or 4 day project of trying to figure out how I'm going to make these headers work. But I would never ever buy these headers again. If I see these, like, I would steer anybody clear of them, because they don't fit. They literally do not fit. Like, they look good and everything. They look like a nice header. You get the bolts and you get the gaskets, and they even have a Y pipe that you can get with it too for an extra $300. So you're spending, what, I think like $600 or $400 for two of your headers and fucking a Y pipe. That's just insane. When they're not even gonna fit. It was just hell putting these on. The worst experience I ever had, and makes me never want to put headers on again. But you know, like they'll go on without you beating them, but then everything, like, you can take a chance of the flange is not fitting up right against the side of the head and it leaking and it bending the studs or the bolts. But it just, they're not good headers. Like, yeah, sure, they're $160, but $160 of a not fitting item. It literally hit everywhere. That's why I'm saying when I put this little knuckle back on for the steering shaft, the steering wheel fucking shaft, this piece, I'm about 100% for sure that this is probably going to hit something. Hence I haven't put it back on because I'm dreading putting more stuff back on since I had such a shitty experience with these headers. I think this guy's name was like Top Notch something or of some sort like that on eBay. They're $163. And even when I got them, they were all scratched up and bulging through the box. The guy ended up sending me, I think, like $20 or $40 back or something. But I should have ended up hurrying up and putting them on real quick instead of waiting a month or two after the fact. And then it's probably even been longer than that. And then putting them on because I would have known that they don't fit. Like, if you have a straight, like, raced, like, a dragged out car, like, you don't give a shit if they're bouncing off the body or the cross member, then these are the headers for you. But otherwise, don't get them. Bye.